Welcome into Locked On Knicks. Alex Wolf here, going solo today. The Knicks win 101-69 over the Chicago Bulls on Sunday night in the Summer League to advance to 2-0. Quentin Grimes already looking maybe too good for Summer League. Same with Jericho Sims. Same with a bunch of Knicks. Break up the Knicks? I don't know. Whatever. Maybe they're too good for Summer League. Maybe they're going to win the championship. I'll talk about it next on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks. I wanted to let you guys know today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. And I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or checking us out on YouTube and taking in the sights and sounds. We appreciate you guys making us a part of your daily routine every day. And who am I? I'm Alex Wolf, editor-in-chief of Knicks site, The Strickland, which you can find at thestrick.land. And the Knicks are maybe the best team in the Summer League. I don't know if that's too bold to say or not yet, but they beat the Bulls 101-69 in their second game of the Summer League. As we were reminded a million times by the broadcast crew, the Knicks got out to a 13-0 lead in this game to start and then just absolutely annihilated the Bulls. I think actually what Mark Jones and Doris Burke said in the last game was really true in this game when they were remarking how the Knicks and the Warriors in that first game sort of felt like a higher level of Summer League basketball because it was a lot of NBA guys playing in the game. You had Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga, amongst others, on the Warriors side versus Grimes and Deuce and Sims on the Knicks side that had gotten some NBA time, along with Farron Hunt, who also got a little bit of NBA time towards the end of the year. I think that really rang true in this game. I think the Knicks have sort of established themselves as a higher level of Summer League product at this point because it's guys that know how to play with one another. They've clearly got a scheme that's working on defense and all that stuff. I mean, this game a little bit to me felt like if you go into a game of NBA 2K and turn it down to rookie level and just annihilate the other team, or maybe the Globetrotters versus the Generals. I don't know. It was almost comedic at first, though, just how much better the Knicks looked than the Bulls. The Bulls were still. I mean, look, it's not a knock on them. I mean, the Bulls didn't have, a ton of like high level, talent on their roster to really inspire you in that way. And then B, just didn't really have that many like NBA vet type guys. Like if you look at up and down the roster, like Dalen Terry, their first round pick this year, look, he had some, some flashes in the game, but other than that, I mean, just not a lot of guys that are actual like NBA players, I don't think, on this roster. So, definitely a talent discrepancy between the two squads, and that's okay. Not every team can have their A game at Summer League every single year, depending on what their draft pick situation was or what have you. And the Bulls have not made a ton of draft picks over the last couple of years, thanks to trying to improve their NBA product. But back to the Knicks, I mean, their defense was just crazy in this game. I thought they were playing the perfect mix of getting over screens and switching when they had to. But it seems sort of like the MO was get over the screen first, and then, as an absolute last resort, Jericho Sims or whoever could, come up and, play defense up at the point of attack there. And I thought they did a really good job with it. I do think that one of the things that plagues the Knicks plagued the Knicks during this past regular season, I should say, was that they played drop coverage almost to a fault where, in a pick and roll situation, Mitch or whoever is pretty much always looking to drift back into the paint and protect against the potential drive, which we saw, against some guys that you wouldn't necessarily even think would be shooters, Like the one that stands out to me was like Josh Giddey, for example, in the one game against the Thunder this year. The Knicks never got out on him. And so, his man would be trying to get over the screen, but wouldn't be able to get over it. And then Mitch wouldn't come up because the game plan was to play like pure drop coverage. And then he'd be left with a wide open three. And even if guys aren't great 3-point shooters, wide open threes are wide open threes, and guys can get in a rhythm then. And that's where we saw the Knicks get torched by like Giddey, and Ricky Rubio did it at one point. I mean, there's a number of different guys. I struggle to think of them. I probably blocked them out of my memory at this point. But, that's something that the Knicks struggled with. And I don't think that that's something that the Summer League defense has been struggling with. I think the Summer League defense has had a good mix of just being smart enough to know when to come up and when to play drop. And that was part of what made them so effective against the Bulls. They really walled off the 3-point line so that they couldn't take any shots there, but then also did a great job of keeping the paint secure as well. Other than a few, I think the only real times where it didn't work was there was a few times where an offensive rebound would come out unexpectedly or something. And I will say with this Summer League squad, other than like Jericho Sims, there isn't a ton of like fantastic rebounding on this team. So that was sort of the one weakness that showed its head a little bit, though it's like kind of nitpicky in a 30-point win with the Summer League here. But like that was the only times when I thought the Knicks, looked a little weaker in this game, but just purely from, defending against a half court set or even defending in transition, I thought they did a really great job in this game. And obviously it showed with a 30-point win. The Bulls, to underscore the dominance of the Knicks defense, the Bulls did not make a field goal until there was 2 minutes and 55 seconds left in the first quarter. So, yes, the quarters are a little shorter during Summer League. So, take that for what it's worth there. But that's still pretty impressive. That's like over 7 minutes without a field goal made for the Bulls to open the game. And that made their grand total at that point 6 points with just under 3 minutes left in the first quarter. So that's pretty solid. I do think this game and how the Knicks have been playing has sort of offered a little bit of a blueprint for how the Knicks could look with the big squad. I don't think that Brunson can offer the defense that Deuce does, just because he's not quite as good of a defender. Deuce, that's sort of his calling card, obviously, his defense. So it's going to be hard to fully replicate that. But I think that like a Brunson, Quentin Grimes, RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin, Mitchell Robinson lineup could give you a lot of what the Summer League starting lineup of Deuce, Trevor Keels, Quentin Grimes, Farron Hunt, and Jericho Sims does in theory. Because even with his physical limitations, like Brunson really tries on defense and he's going to try to get over screens a lot. But if Mitch is back to the shape that he was in, say, to start the 20-21 season, which I'm hoping will happen, he's got this new contract and everything, and, knows that he's got his long-term future secure with the Knicks. Hopefully he comes in like really spry and ready to rock. Like he has that ability to get all the way out to the perimeter and not lose somebody that way too. So I hope that that's something that the Knicks entertain, and that Tibbs is maybe watching this and saying, oh, all right, well, maybe we don't have to play drop on everything. Maybe there can be a little bit of switching on defense and we can try that out, and still have guys trying to get over screens, but also have them, occasionally switch. And with a lineup like what the Knicks propose to have, I think you can get away with switching most positions except for Brunson. So I guess that's the only thing to consider is like Brunson makes it a little more difficult at that point guard spot to be able to switch, but also you could generate other switches, off the ball that can then alleviate Brunson having to guard like a center or something. And RJ Barrett or Quentin Grimes or Obi Toppin or whoever can kind of hold their own for at least a possession against a bigger player like that, because they're just built really big. So I do hope that the Knicks are taking notes here on things that they can move to the big squad. I want to talk about Quentin Grimes and Jericho Sims and some of the other guys on the team, of course, because there's a lot of great individual performances outside of the awesome team performance, but I did have to let you guys know real quick that today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's not NHL playoffs anymore, but Major League Baseball for sure. Very, very much going on along with Summer League. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check out on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. And you guys know, a big Mets fan, wearing a Mets hat right now if you're watching on YouTube, as I pretty much always am this time of year. And I like the Mets with Max Scherzer taking the mound against Max Fried. Mets plus 1.5 favorites against the Braves here. Or actually, I'm sorry, the Mets are not favored. They get plus 1.5. I'm taking that all day. Yeah. What? I totally read that wrong before I got on the show. Yeah, take the Mets plus 1.5. I mean, they're better than the Braves. I don't care how both teams have been performing. Max Scherzer is going to come out and crush the Braves in this game. So definitely go for the Mets there. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. Bet online where the game starts. All right, and I am back to talk more Knicks basketball, and it's time to get into some players because obviously you got to talk about the team first. When the team wins by over 30 in the summer league, I mean it was a complete team effort, but there's some great individual performances, and I hate to say this, but Quentin Grimes might already be almost ready to graduate from summer league. Like I'm going back and forth in my head now between do I want to see Grimes keep playing and the Knicks end up winning this like summer league championship, or do I want to see Grimes get sat down and put in bubble wrap at this point, because I don't think he really has much left to prove at this point. So it's going to be a little bit of a back and forth in my head. I think maybe the middle ground there is like if the Knicks win tonight against Portland and then go 3-0, maybe the solution then is like, okay, just sit Grimes for the last two games, because if you're even if you end up like 3-2 or 3-3, that'll probably get you like a first round bye in the summer league tournament, because I don't know, that format is weird. They let literally every team in it from the start, so I don't know. Hopefully, but they would probably, even without Grimes, win at least one or two more games. So, hopefully you kind of put him on ice and then can have him play during the summer league playoffs, maybe contend, get those first ever summer league championship rings. I don't know. But in this game, just like in the last game, he was absolutely dominant. 24 points in 23 minutes, shot 7 of 14 from the field, 4-9 from deep, had 4 rebounds, 4 assists. I really loved what he's doing as far as trying to sort of like run the offense. And, I talked about this last episode with John Schulman, my buddy, about like that Grimes is kind of stepping up and taking the challenge right now with being like the guy on this team. And, he's taking interviews saying he wants to be the man, he wants to be dominant at summer league, all this stuff. And it really shows. I mean, I thought that he's not just getting his own shot, he's setting up others too. And he had 2 awesome looks to Jericho Sims in this game that I thought were fantastic. One was like he was driving in early on in the second half, I believe, and like threw this like over the head pass to Sims. Like as he was kind of driving, he had Sims trailing and threw a pass like clean over his head to Sims, and Sims threw that one down. That was an awesome look. And then another one, there was sort of a broken play where Gene Montero got caught sort of up and at the elbow of the 3-point line, and then passed out to, I want to say it was maybe Farron Hunt, who then moved it to Grimes, and then Grimes takes it in and just throws this nasty behind the back pass to Sims, who finishes off the play. Those two have really great chemistry out there. I've been really liking watching the two of them play together, and I think that Grimes is really doing himself a service as far as trying new things, which I'll get into in a minute. There's a couple guys that, or at least one guy in particular that's sort of standing out to me, is not trying a ton of new things. Grimes is trying new things and doing really well with it. He also generated 6 free throw attempts too, which shows that, he's not just like fake getting inside. He is actually getting all the way in He's at least attempting to finish on the inside, and drawing some fouls and stuff like that. So on top of that, I mean, the 3-point shooting was there too. The 4 of 9 from deep. I think he started like 4 of 5. So I guess it's actually kind of a testament to how good the other parts of his game were working, that he managed to, miss his last 4 attempts from three and yet still end up shooting as well as he did, and doing as well as he did in the second half. But in the first half, I mean, he was shooting from anywhere, and he was like 5, 6 feet behind the line, pulling up for three and just nailing them. I think he's definitely, there's no reason to ever worry about Grimes' shooting. I think it's pretty much always going to be there, and I think Quentin Grimes is going to make a lot of money in his NBA career, hopefully from the Knicks, being a really great shooter. And it's been showing out during this summer league. So I don't know. I think at this point, through 2 games, he's if the Knicks keep winning big and he keeps only playing like 20 minutes or whatever, I don't know if he'll be in summer league MVP conversation. But if the voters, whoever I guess it's all the media that shows up there, if they look at it objectively and say like, okay, if he was having to play as many minutes as some of these other guys, he would probably be the MVP. Maybe he gets some looks, especially, maybe the Knicks go undefeated or something, and then he really looks good there. Or maybe they set him down a little bit, like I suggested, and he doesn't get MVP, but the team does well and then can compete for the summer league title. I don't know, but either way, I really love what I'm seeing out of Quentin Grimes. Brings me also to Jericho Sims. I love what I'm seeing out of him too. He had 11 points, 10 rebounds in 22 minutes. It didn't get any blocks, but I thought the rim deterrence was there. And as I said, he was so switchy, and able to do so much on defense and just affect things on that end. I think he's also another one of those guys that I don't know how much he has left to prove at this level at this point. This feels a lot like what Quickly and Toppin did last year, where they just kind of came in and just owned the summer league. They were so good that they looked like they were already like not fit for this level of competition anymore. And I sort of feel the same with Sims. I mean, for all the I don't know what you want to call it, the belly aching over Jalen Duren that I saw happening like on Twitter and whatever, and little, civil wars happening over whether the Knicks should have kept pick 13, taking Jalen Duren. I mean, Sims obviously comes with the caveat that he's older, and has less room to grow, presumably. But I mean, if he just does what he does in this summer league and what he's shown he can do in the NBA, which is set good screens, finish around the rim, with lobs, with that crazy otherworldly athleticism that he has, and then even if he's not generating blocks, just deter people from going to the rim, meet people on the perimeter and defend that way. I think he's already proven that he's a great NBA player and doesn't need to do too much more at the summer league level. Though again, I hope he keeps playing, because I love seeing him in sort of a featured role, getting all those dunks, getting the spotlight that I think he deserves right now, because he's playing fantastic. But he's also been trying some new stuff. Like he once again was showing a little bit of polish around the hoop. Like at one point in this game, got it sort of on the low block, or not even quite on the low block. Like I guess it was around the free throw line, and sort of took a couple back down dribbles, sort of feinted like he was going to go one way, and then just used good footwork and went up with a nice little baby hook and put it in. And it's simple stuff by old school standards, but not something you always see in today's NBA. So, I love seeing that from him. I like seeing that he's working on some of those inside skills. I think his priorities are pretty well set at this point, where, you want to work on, and this is something I hope that Mitch works on this summer too, where you want to kind of work on having like a little bit of a back down game, and a little bit of old school, like just put your butt into somebody and go up for a baby hook. I think that that's really important. And a lot of that's just footwork. You don't need the crazy athleticism. We've seen Taj Gibson for years, and maybe that's someone that Sims kind of is emulating with this, as like despite having that crazy athleticism, he's a little undersized, like height and wingspan wise for a 5. So maybe that's someone that he sort of took notes from, as far as how to develop his offensive game. But I think the Sims is coming along really nicely. I really like what I'm seeing out of him during this summer league. I'm going to talk about some of the other guys, including Deuce McBride, who I'm maybe not as impressed with as some of the other guys. That's not to say that I'm unimpressed. I just have not been uh, thinking that he's experimenting enough, I guess would be the way to put it. But I got to quickly remind you guys, today's episode is brought to you by rockauto.com. With the ever increasing number of makes and models, it's impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why would you want to go in there and deal with that brick and mortar store experience of getting asked a million probing questions? When you come in, you already know what parts you need, but they're, just trying to distract you so that they can pull up the most expensive part possible. So asking you all these questions you don't know the answer to, or don't need to know the answer to, because you're only, you've already diagnosed your problem and you know what it is and you just want to fix it. Then of course they tell you, oh yeah, we don't have the part in stock, which of course, think about how tiny this store is that you just walked into and how many cars there are in general. There's no way that they could possibly have it there. Then they give you the price too. And you're like, ugh, man, so expensive. I could have just gone to the mechanic at this rate and, not done it myself and paid, I don't know, $20 more or something. It starts to not become worth it when you go to these stores. That's where rockauto.com comes in. You can save time and money when you use Rock Auto, because you're not going to have to drive to the store. You're not going to have to drive back to the store to pick the part up once they get it shipped to them. There's so many things that make it easier to just go to rockauto.com. Like, one, it's in your pocket or on your computer. Just go to rockauto.com. Two, they ship everything right to your door. So you don't have to make a bunch of trips in your car that needs fixing anyway. Clearly, if you're buying auto parts, don't have to be making trips to the store to get the parts that you need. You could just get them delivered right to your doorstep and then fix your car at your leisure. And you don't have to spend 30%, 50%, or even 100% more for the same parts from that chain store or, heaven forbid, a car dealership. Rock Auto is also a family business. They've been serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years, and their prices are reliably low for every customer, not just for mechanics. That's something you run into with those stores too. They're going to give a lower price to a mechanic than they would to what I affectionately call a home mechanic, like you or me, that goes on YouTube and figures out how to fix their car. So go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. If you decide to get something right, Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. All right, so starting to move towards the back end of the show here. I mentioned I want to talk about Deuce McBride. I wanted to just bring up a quick note though, because I was just talking about how Grimes and Sims sort of seem like they've almost played themselves out of this level. Speaking of guys that played themselves out of this level, Obi Toppin and Emmanuel Quickly showed up at the game, and they're like best friends. And I love that they're like best friends. It's totally cool. It's so funny seeing them like literally do everything together. Like, if you follow them on like social media and stuff too, they're always like at each other's houses doing stuff and whatever. And during summer league, they've been like, seems like connected at the hip, like always at the games together and everything and out doing stuff together. Very cool to see. But I heard at some point during the game, and I think it was in the first half, maybe around like the second quarter, all of a sudden an Obi chant broke out. I forget if it was Obi or Obi Toppin, but one of the standard like MSG Knicks chants broke out for Obi. And it was just really funny because he wasn't even playing, but he must have arrived at that time and some fans saw him and decided to give him that treatment. Though, I wonder how much that feels familiar to him, being on the bench and having the Knicks fans cheer for him as if they want him to come into the game. Unfortunately, maybe that's going to be more the case this year if Randall's still on the team. But to get to Deuce McBride, I really like what he does to space the floor. I, of course, love what he does on defense. I think he's one of the best defenders, not just on the Summer League Knicks team, but on the Knicks in general. His impact numbers from this past year speak volumes about that. But I feel like I'm not really seeing him experiment much this Summer League, which I feel like is what's the overall purpose of Summer League. Like, yes, Summer League is fun and, you want to see, the team do well and stuff like that. But like, a lot of it is these guys have had, in the case of the Knicks, since they didn't make the playoffs, they've had 3 months now to sort of get into their off season and start working on stuff. And so with these young guys, you want to see what they've been working on. With Grimes, we can see it, right? Like, he's treating himself like a primary option in the summer league and doing really well. And he's attacking closeouts and getting inside and, looking to distribute to his teammates, which are things that we saw sparingly his rookie year, but not so much as it is right now, where he's more of like a featured option. And it's good to see him working on those sort of things. With Deuce, I feel like I want to see him trying to get inside more. I want to see him trying to finish, on the inside and that sort of thing. And I feel like we even saw more of that in last summer league and during last NBA season than we're seeing during this summer league so far. It seems like this summer league he's more content to just be like a pull up and spot up guy that is essentially just shooting threes or maybe getting into the mid range or something like that. But that seems to be about all that he seems to want to do or be comfortable with. And look, I'm not even saying he's playing bad. Like he had 14 points, 6 assists. Like you'll take that all day. I think he moves the ball well still. It's just I'm not seeing him do anything that looks like it's pushing his comfort zone. And that's more what I'm looking for in summer league is, are you going to push your limits, try new things? We saw like last year, for example, Emmanuel quickly, take the challenge to take over the offense and be the point guard. And we saw a lot of what he did in summer league eventually translate at the end of the season with the Big Knicks as far as running the team. And he had great success down the stretch of the year. We saw Obi Toppin, same deal. Last summer league sort of took over as being like the number one option scoring guy. And although he had some struggles with shooting the ball or whatever during last summer league, he was still scoring like 20 plus points per game, looked really great, and looked like a primary offensive option. And then we see him do the same thing down the stretch of this NBA season. So I feel like summer league should serve as sort of a blueprint for what you're hoping to achieve in the NBA. No matter if it's in game one of the NBA season or maybe you have to wait a while for your opportunity to come up later in the season, which I feel like would definitely be the case for Deuce more so than Grimes. I think Grimes has a real shot to maybe be the starting shooting guard next year with how he's played. But Deuce, probably fighting for his late season role if the Knicks, don't make the playoffs again and, find themselves in that situation. But still, I want to see him push his limits a little bit. Now, maybe he's also just a pull up and spot up shooter that plays amazing defense. And if that's the case, then that's cool too. I think we've seen he and quickly, had one of the best 2-man ratings in the entire NBA last year, not just on the Knicks. So, if that's just who he is and he plays the level of defense that he does and is a pull up and spot up shooter, okay. I mean, that's fine. But at this level and given the physical gifts that he has and everything, I'd love to see him try to challenge himself. And maybe we'll see a little more of that throughout the rest of the summer league as he's just sort of let other guys get cooking so far. But I want to see him sort of try to look for his own, down the stretch of this summer league season. Speaking of guys, I'm kind of worried about still too. I know John, my guest, and I had a little disagreement about this on the first show of summer league, but I'm still worried about Trevor Keels. And I use worried in like I'm just worried for this particular moment and like how he's going to look this year. But I could see like a blueprint for potential success with him. I think he's built really big already, maybe too big. Like I think that his past success is probably going to be leaning up a little bit and getting himself to the point where that can affect his burst and his first step positively, where he can become a little bit faster of a player. Because I could sort of see like he has good instincts as far as, when to shoot, when to try to get inside and all that stuff. But he doesn't have the best first step to take advantage of those opportunities where he can attack a closeout or whatever. And I've noticed him just so many times get bottled up during this summer league. I mean, his box score stats were once again really not great looking, and it felt like a reflection of what was happening on the floor. 2 of 10 shooting, 5 points in 25 minutes. But, he still managed to be a plus on the floor, although pretty much every player was for the Knicks in this game. But I just think I don't know that his defense is ever going to be super, super great. So he's got to really figure out the offense. And I think how he's going to figure out the offense is by, getting a little leaner and getting to the point where, he can use physical training to increase his, speed and burst and that sort of stuff a little bit. Because otherwise, as he stands right now, I think he's a little undersized. I don't think that he has the best burst to make up for that and, give him any sort of advantage. And he just looks really overmatched. But as they said, like 5,000 times on the ESPN broadcast, and I totally agree with this, like he's 18 right now. He's really young. He's the mold breaker draft pick for the Knicks, actually. Like this is the first guy that they've taken that's been as young as he is. And, with the relative lack of experience when they normally go for more seasoned college players, which is why we've seen in summer leagues in the past, I guess we should just say last year's, because last year was the only one that the Knicks have had during the Leon Rose era. But you know, guys stepped in and were more polished last year, like Grimes, who came in and like as soon as the shot came around, he looked amazing, and Deuce looked pretty good during last year's summer league and stuff because they take guys that have a couple years under their belt usually and are a little older, and Keels breaks that mold. He's sort of the first like project that the Knicks have drafted. So I'll be intrigued to see how he does on his two-way contract this year, as far as uh, you know, getting his reps with the big squad, getting that like training, that Knicks level training up at that level, and then how he shows out and develops down in the G League, because I do think he'll spend a decent amount of time down there. So we'll see what happens with him. But as of right now, pretty much the only stuff that I'm seeing that looks somewhat promising out of Keels is like spot up 3-point shooting. So he's got a lot of work to do. But the Knicks have only drafted workers so far, so I feel pretty good about him. Being able to achieve that over time. Farron Hunt, star of game one, the unexpected star of game one, I thought kind of came back down to earth in this game. The shots weren't falling quite as well, but on the defensive end, I thought he was really affecting things. He really uses that wingspan and anticipation to, generate steals and generate turnover opportunities for the Knicks, as well as just being pretty switchy with that wingspan and, a pretty good size about him. My main thing is I can't help but envision how Obi would do in the role that Hunt is playing right now if the Knicks were going to do a similar scheme in the big leagues. Like I said, on defense and everything, Obi, I think is like a faster, better version of Hunt who can reliably shoot. Of course, they're not exactly the same player. Like I think that Obi also has great pick and roll finishing ability, lob finishing ability, stuff like that. But you know defensively, I could see them filling a pretty similar role, where maybe a little undersized at the 4 spot, but able to generate steals, able to get out in transition and really affect things that way. So, that when I'm watching Hunt right now, I just can't help but think a little bit about how that could potentially work for Obi if the Knicks, institute, like I said at the top of the show, more of a switchy defensive scheme, or at least entertaining the idea of switching and stuff. So, but yeah, good game for Farron Hunt, despite the box score not really being there. I thought Daquan Jeffries had some moments. He was flying around on both ends. He had 13 points, 6 boards, shot 5 of 7. On offense, I really liked that he was getting downhill, generating rim pressure. Had a really nice, just like barrel down the lane dunk at one point. That was really cool. So liked what I saw out of him. Gene Montero, as I start kind of wrapping up here, Gene Montero I thought had a pretty decent showing, though I thought he got a little trigger happy. Also got 5 fouls in 16 minutes. You get like 10 personal fouls in summer league or something like that, because they're not trying to have you foul out, but still, he's got to tighten things up a little bit on both ends. I don't think he's ready for it yet, but I would love if the Knicks end up like 3-0, 4-0, whatever, and things seem pretty locked up with playoff positioning, quote unquote, for the summer league tournament, like they've guaranteed a first round bye or something like that. However that all works. I hope maybe they give Deuce and Grimes and all them a game off and kind of just go with the B squad for a game and let Montero kind of like run the show. I would like to see what he can do, because I think that he's already got the ability to break the defense down to some degree, and he definitely can generate looks for himself. Like, out of a quick pick and roll, he can splash a pull up 3. He can turn the corner and get inside, it seems like, but I want to see what he can do if they really task him with sort of like running the offense and looking to get his teammates involved and being sort of like the point guard out there. It seems like they haven't really done that so far, and that's a role I'd like to see him try. And then everybody on the roster got to see the floor at some point. Although I'll fully admit I sort of checked out in the fourth quarter because I felt like there wasn't too much more to see with some of the guys out there. But I'll just quickly shout out Micah Potter. I thought was really good. I liked his energy on both ends. He got like the primary backup center minutes behind Jericho Sims. He had a really nice pin block against the backboard in relief of Jericho early on. I don't. He's probably a Westchester Nick. That's probably where he's destined to be, or some other G League team. But thought he had a good showing. And then MJ Walker too. I think he's probably also headed back to the Westchester Knicks, but I got a nice 4 points in 6 minutes. Thought he had a good little showing. I'm actually kind of surprised we haven't seen more of him, but I think it's probably due to the fact that Farron Hunt has sort of taken over as their like rangy wing type dude, that can play good defense now. I think that's probably the main reason that we're not seeing more MJ Walker, but it's nice to see him again. Nice to be reminded that he's around and that he'll probably be back on the Westchester Knicks this year. And that's pretty much all I got for this game. So there's a back-to-back tonight against Portland at 11 Eastern. So nice late game to stay up for tonight. Portland doesn't have Shaden Sharp anymore, and they're not exactly the most polished roster in Summer League. I could very easily see things going very similar to this Bulls game if the Knicks come out and are firing on all cylinders again. So exciting times. It's fun to see some winning Knicks basketball. Nice little distraction for the summer. We'll be back with another episode. I think Gavin and I both tomorrow. So definitely keep your eyes out for that. Till next time, though, thank you all for listening today. And we'll be talking to you all soon with more Summer League recaps and more great content this week. So I hope to see you all soon. Peace out, everybody.